Welcome to How's Your ePresence? This show is produced by ePresence, and I am Mark Galvin, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on How's Your ePresence. We are thrilled that you are here. You know what we do here. We talk about marketing issues and businesses and how we can help businesses do things a little better. We are always pretty close to that marketing space. We're going to veer a little bit outside the lane, but we're still going to stay on technology today. So stick around and you're going to love this content. We're always building a library. We're interested in finding great guests that can give you great content on ways you can solve things in your small and medium-sized business. So for example, how can music make you a more successful business person? Another show that we have done recently, how to achieve organic growth. We're all interested in learning that. And another one is how to achieve leverage in social media in the financial setting, because it's a highly regulated space. So those are some recent shows. Go check out the YouTube channel and you will see all of those shows there. So all our shows are live, and we are always running live shows on either Tuesday at 10 or Thursday at 3. So make a little note and tune in when we go live. We'd love for you to join us. If you are tuning in live, ask a question. You can go ahead and drop them right in the chat box. We'll see those questions. If I don't see it, I'll get a nudge from our host, from our producer. Morgan will say, Mark, you got a question over there. And we will be happy to send those questions or throw them up to our guests. Today, we're going to talk about the cyber world and the vulnerabilities of cyber tech and the things that you need to know about. And I'm carving it up. I'm probably not even saying that right. So if you're concerned about cybersecurity, you definitely want to stick around and see our guest today. We'd also love for you to subscribe. So if this is your first time here, if you're watching a recorded version of this show, please subscribe. It's always on the other side. Please subscribe down there. Here's why you want to subscribe. You'll get a notification when we go live. That way you can come in and send us a question or two and join in on the conversation. So please subscribe no matter where you are, no matter when you're watching this. Please let us know that you want more of our content. Today we have a fantastic show. Our guest is Alon Manstur. He is with Cybrella, and Cybrella is a cybersecurity firm. He has founded 5 businesses. This is someone who really knows how to develop a business, how to execute it, and how to make it really succeed. He has 20 years of experience in cybersecurity. Here's something great. He's from Israel, and he's although he sits in Boston today, so he has come to the U.S. to expand Cybrella into the U.S. And I think he actually launched Cybrella here in the U.S. So they're headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts, and they also have a co-headquarters in Tel Aviv. So stick around. You're going to want to meet Alon. He's absolutely a terrific guy and has a lot of great information that all of us can learn from. So a reminder, if you're tuning in, ask a question. We would love to bounce those questions off of Alon. And in today's world, with as much stuff that we're doing online, we know cybersecurity is important to all of you. So please ask a question as we go through, or you can even pop it in there now if you already have a question about cybersecurity. Well, good. I don't see anything else on my script, so let's bring Alon to the screen. Alon, where are you? There you are. Alon, welcome. How are you, sir?
Hello. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. So on the bio, it said you founded 5 businesses. Are any of those other businesses in the cybersecurity world?
Yeah, in some way in the cybersecurity world, but I think that the significant one was To Be Secure. It's a company that I ran for almost 18 years. It's a cybersecurity services company, one of the leaders in Israel. When I left To Be Secure, we were 150 people, all of them experts in several domains of the cybersecurity, which is, it's a significant one. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do here in the US, to duplicate the success that we had in To Be Secure to the US market. I think that in To Be Secure, I learned a lot about how to customize the services to the local market. And the challenge here is to bring it to the US, which is a huge market and exciting, and the international global one.
Outstanding. So your English is really good. I'm impressed. So English is not your first language, I'm guessing. Is that right?
No, of course not. As you can hear in my accent, and you mentioned it, yeah, born and grow in Israel, of course.
That's fantastic. Well, I think that your English is fantastic. I'm always envious is the right word of anyone who could speak more than one language. As you probably know by now, since you're in the US, we're not great at learning multiple languages in the US. It's not because we don't teach it, it's because we learn it and then we just don't use them. So I'm impressed that that you speak such great English. Well, I want to ask you a ton of questions about cybersecurity. You ready for me to grill you?
Yeah, of course. I'm here with
I don't think I'm going to be able to stump you, but I got some stuff I want to throw at you.
Yes.
So the first thing, in today's cyber world, company executives and leaders may overlook some of their vulnerabilities. I know that I certainly feel like I've done that here at ePresence. What are the vulnerabilities that companies typically fail to address?
Okay, so as you mentioned, I've been 25 years in the cybersecurity, and I definitely can say that the vulnerabilities that we had 10, 15 years ago, it's not the same. They are not the same vulnerabilities that we have today. And
Right.
by looking about the cybersecurity evolution, I can mention two domains as a recent threats, a recent domains of vulnerabilities today that unfortunately I don't think that they're handled in a proper way. Which one of them it's in the human area. It means the human risks. I think that one of the biggest threats today, as we can see in a lot of reports, including the FBI one, that tens of the 90%, more than 90% of the successful data leak and the hacking activities are happening by a mistake that one of the employees inside the organization have done.
100%.
Uh, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And this is one of the significant vulnerabilities that we have, because the human risk, it's something that it's more challenging to handle. You can put a lot of security products, you can implement the technology mechanism and the security controllers, but after all, if you have someone inside the network that doesn't familiar with this risk, he doesn't aware, so he can open the door for a actual hacker from the external network and allow him the access to the sensitive data. And this is one of the big problems today.
Sure.
I think it's quite easy to handle it. We just need to put some attention to that, because the way to handle it is to train the employees, to explain them about the risks, to show them, and again, explain them about incidents that happened, because we can hear every day about some things that happened to one company or other. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and the awareness, it's something that it's easy to bring to their mind, but we just need to put attention to that and resources and maintain it. So this
So
is one
so
of the
Alon, how do you do that? And I ask this, and this is you're hitting close to home. I have a staff member that sent me an email that she got, just a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. And in that email, a person said they were me, and they said to her, "Hey, I would like," and again, they're channeling me, so it was in my voice, so to speak, where they said, "Hey, I need some help. Will you please go here and fill out this form so that we can get this to a client?" And now this was a staff member that's very astute. She was brilliant. She saw it, and I think she scoffed, knew immediately it wasn't from me. Those are the types of things that everybody's dealing with. And I have a small org, right? Mine's not huge. If you had 150 people like you had at your last company, CB Secure, 2B Secure, excuse me,
to be secure. Yeah.
at 2B to Secure, 150 staff members, if they weren't in cybersecurity, that would be a huge concern. How do you get those employees who, quite frankly, may not be technology wise to understand not to do whatever those things are? Is there a trick to it?
Okay, so this is exactly that. the attacks that I talked about, we see a lot of what you called the same event that you had. It's called C-level phishing attacks. It means that the hackers or someone from the outside network is trying to create a fake profile or a fake email that's similar to one of the C-levels in the organization. And they are trying to do some malicious activities by doing that. It means that they are sending, I can tell you about the stories that we saw about 2 weeks ago. It was incidents that we were involved in the forensics, that someone sent to one of the accountants. She was quite new in the company. She hired 3 weeks before the event. And someone knew about that, and he sent her an email that was with a fake email address of the CEO. And it's very easy to do that. You know, instead of putting L in the name of, let's say, Daniel, for an example, they put a capital I at the end. And, you know, the people cannot see and understand.
You don't see the difference, sure.
One. And this send her an instruction, please wire those amounts to that invoice, to that subcontractor. And she started to do the transactions. And after $40,000 that were already wired, then the security controllers were sending alerts and the flags. And this is what we call the C-level phishing attacks. And to your question, what is the best way to avoid those cases? It's just to train them. It's to put awareness program in the organization. Think about the enterprises. They have much bigger problem than us because they have thousands of employees. You cannot control all of the units, all of the departments, and employees are focusing on their role, you know, to execute their responsibility as a part of the job. And they cannot, you know, be aware and to look at every email if it's so. The program of awareness inside the organization, inside the company, it's a part of the cybersecurity program. And it means that we are sending them a weekly video in a fun way, you know, to explain them the risks. We show them some use cases as you just described. And that's the best way to bring them to be more aware and to put attention if those kind of things are happening. Because again, the human resource, it's the more vulnerable than the technology, and we need to handle
I'm gonna tell you what, that is really stressful. This is good. So as I mentioned, I would get a prompt from off the screen. We have a question here, so let's bring this up. And I got to move my screen over so I can see the whole thing. So John Kalaki asked a question about cyber insurance. Many companies we work with, and I have to read this out loud because the podcast listeners can't see this. Many companies we work with will contractually mandate we have cyber insurance. And we've bought it, but the costs have tripled. There's not a surprise, right? The costs have tripled since we first bought it in 2020. Just curious, what are your thoughts about this coverage and the costs going forward?
That's a great question. So I think that it's reasonable that the price was tripled because we can understand at the beginning when they started about 10, 12 years ago with the cyber insurance, we didn't have so many attacks and costs that need to be covered as a part of the cybersecurity incidents in the companies. But as today that we can hear and we know that there are many of cybersecurity incidents, and the cyber security policies needs to cover their clients and to pay off those damages. That's the reason that it's become to be much more higher from the price perspective. If I'm looking on the future on that area of the cyber insurances, I believe that one of the tools that the cyber insurances have to control the damages of the cyber incidents, it's to have some standards in place. Like we saw in the PCI, in the credit card companies. 15 years, 20 years ago, there were a lot of malicious and people that duplicated the credit card numbers and use it for malicious activities. And the credit card companies saw that the damage from the cost perspective, it's huge.
It's a huge exposure, absolutely.
Exactly. So they defined the standard that they force today any kind of companies that having a lot of transactions with a credit card, how to work in a proper way from the cybersecurity place. It's not just technologies that the clients need to be implement, also the procedures, the people, how to behave in the cybersecurity as a culture in your company. And those standards put the cybersecurity program in place in the companies that made benefits and made the improvement, I think, of the activities of the cybersecurity. And by that, we see less damage from the credit card aspects. I think that some things that are going to be with the cyber insurances is going to be the same, that they will put some standards and test checks before you are getting your cyber insurance to avoid and to control at least the damages that you might have if you will have incident response. Because today it's quite difficult for them to compare between one company to the second one. If one of the customers of the insurance companies, they put cybersecurity in place and they have some components and the procedures, and the other one don't have those, they don't have those cybersecurity activities, you cannot bring the same rate or the same value of the cyber insurance policy to both of the companies. And I think that the way to handle it in the future would be to compare with check-ins that they can do and audits, and as I said, to define a standard.
I think that makes total sense. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and one of the things that happens in Atlanta is my insurance goes through the roof. My car insurance. Now, yeah, I have 3 kids on my policy. Oh, I can't wait for that to go away. But so part of the reason that my insurance is so high is because there's tons of people getting wrecks in Atlanta, and it pushes my premium up. So basically, the idiots that are out there driving, and none of these people watch this show, for the record, right? So the people who don't watch this show that get in tons of accidents in Atlanta are driving my premiums up. So as companies get better and better at protecting themselves from this cybersecurity efforts, that'll lower those insurance costs. Would you expect?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, again, cyber insurances, they works with a formula, of the mass market. As much as they can learn about the incidents and what is the damage, it's easier for them to evaluate how much they are going to pay. And this is, the way that they are pricing the coverage and the policy. And as I said, I think that because from the insurance perspective, at least in the cybersecurity, we don't have a lot of researches and we don't have a lot of knowledge, because it's something that built on decades, and recent 10 years, I think that the most significant cyber incident that the cyber insurance learned from, and that's why it's going to be lower price in the future. But again, as I said, they need to evaluate also how the company is acting from the cybersecurity perspective, and if they have a cybersecurity program in place and they are maintaining it, and then it can be, of course, lower the price.
That's great. So, we're talking about companies. What size companies do you guys help? Is there a particular market segment or company size that you focus on?
So yes, when we started, as exactly as I did in To Be Secure in Israel, I was focusing on the enterprises, and I started to work with the enterprises and the big companies, because their needs in the cybersecurity are much more significant than the SMBs. But when I came here to the US, we in Cybrella, we worked with the enterprises as well, but we decided to put a lot of efforts, and as a part of our go-to-market, to be focused on the SMB because of 2 main reasons. The first one is we saw that the SMB needs the same activities in the cybersecurity as the enterprises is today. One of the drivers of that market of the cybersecurity are the standards and the authorities, and they become to be fourth as SMB as they did a few years ago with the enterprises. And also the risks are coming and migrating to the SMB. You see the ransomware mostly taking effects on the SMBs, but because I think it's easier for the hackers to hack the SMB and to get
100%.
sensitive data. And from the other side, we saw another interesting thing from the marketing perspective, and I can give you an example for that. One of my customers 2 years ago, he based in New York, he told me, listen, I had a specific problem in the cloud from the security aspects, of course. And
Right.
I made a research and I found a startup, an American startup that provide a solution to that specific challenge. I called them. I told them I'm interested to buy your solution. And after 15 minutes of introduction on the call with the salesperson from that startup, he asked him, tell me, how many employees are you in the company? He told him we are 400 people. 400 people, it's not a tiny company. And he told him, oh, I'm so sorry. We are working just with enterprises more than 1,500 employees. So I'm sorry, but I cannot sell the solution to you. So this is exactly emphasize why we decided, and this is one of the reasons that we decided to focus on the SMB. I think that demand and the needs are the same, and we bring our capabilities and our expertise from the enterprises part to the SMB, and we are focusing in that market.
So you've dove into an underserved market, and that's fantastic. And I'm glad that you're there, because clearly we need you. So I'm looking at time. I have time for one more question, and I'm not surprised by this. Your knowledge is so deep. There's so many places to go.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about a lot of that. So what have you found? Let's talk about growing a company, because we got so many business owners that are watching, and you're in a space, and I think a lot of business owners may look at you with some level of, they may be a little jealous, because yours is a space that is a huge need. Let's just generally focus on companies. What have you found are the best way to grow a company in an international and competitive environment? Because you're running a company on 2 different continents, and I would think you're coming into the U.S. and you've got to figure out how to compete in the U.S., which may not be natural to you. I think you're going to be great, but how do you manage that?
Okay, so and the first steps in the beginning, we started to work and to engage directly with the customers here in the US, with some personal relationship and so on. And I think that one thing that I learned fast, that the best way to grow here in the US, it's by partnering with strategic partners that we can complement them with our services. And that was one of good decisions that we made, and we put a lot of efforts to engage and to build the trust with partners here, partners that comes from the technology, of course, MSPs, cloud providers, application providers, developers, and we complement their services with the cybersecurity services that we provide. And in that case, it can bring 360 degree of their customers' needs. And at the beginning, we just started to build the trust with them, and we gave them some use cases that we can work together, and we built a joint service with them. And today, it's opened us from each partner, hundreds of customers that we serve, and we provide our services. And I think that was one of the powerful tools to grow and to make Cybrella growth. in the
That's
United
great.
States.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. So, Alon, and sometimes I think that I should probably convert this show into an hour-long show, but we're only 30 minutes long. I hate to do this. We got to wrap up, but where do you think is the best place for people go to find you?
In our website, of course, it's www.cybrella.io. We have the description of our services and the package of our services. You can contact us if you have any incidents that you need, an immediate response for that. You can do that as well through the website, and we'll be happy to contact you.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, how old is the company? How long have you guys been?
Almost 3 years.
3 years. All right.
Yeah.
And did you start in Israel and then come to the U.S., or did you start here and expand to Israel?
So no, I started in Israel, of course. To Be Secure,
Good.
as I mentioned, was almost 20 years. To Be Secure was acquired by the biggest IT company in Israel, 14,000
Wow,
employees.
fantastic.
Metrics the name. And I came here and established Cybrella from scratch, and to duplicate the success of To Be Secure in the US market.
Well, I think that coming out of Israel says a lot, because there are so many great tech companies that come out of Israel. Culturally, I think that Israel is very amenable to growing tech companies, because you guys are so forward thinking culturally, and I think that's going to help your success in the U.S. Alon, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for joining us. This is great content.
Thank you.
I may end up picking the phone up and calling you to ask you to join us again when Colonial Pipelines has another cyber attack. It would be kind of sadly interesting to hear how could we avoid it. Although I think that was an email that somebody opened at Colonial, right? Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, again, Alon, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Don't go anywhere. I'd like to chat with you right after the show, but I appreciate you joining us today.
Sure. Thank you very much.
See you soon. For the rest of you, thanks for being here. This is great content. We all need to know how we can make our cybersecurity better. This is not an issue that's going to go away. And I think having Alon as a guest today and in the future, and if you ever have a question, remember this, you can ask us questions that you'd like for us to respond to, and we could go and ask Alon to come back and speak specifically to maybe you're having a problem at your company. Let us know. We have a good relationship with Alon. We'd be happy to have him come back and join us. So what about ePresence? As you know, this show is sponsored by ePresence. We offer full service social media management. That means we manage company, personal, we offer consulting, we offer training. We even offer this brand new service called eForensics. Maybe it's not quite so new anymore. That will help attorneys gather the forensic evidence from social media. So we help you with that. The goal is to try to find a solution and become the experts on social media, which is what we're trying to endeavor to do every single day. ePresence, how's your ePresence? That is everywhere. We're live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and on Facebook. You can always join us and ask us questions. Thank you again to John Kalaki for joining us today with his great question. If you want to ask a question of the show in the future, make sure you subscribe. So if you're watching this in a recorded, sitting on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on LinkedIn. You'll get the notification there. Follow us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube. If you're a podcast listener, you can always catch us on any podcast app. If you don't know where to find us, go to our website, epresence.me. That's epresence.me, because it's all about you, and hit /podcast, epresence.me/podcast. You'll find all of our podcast channels there. We're dropping new content all the time. You can always catch us, listen to us in your car as you're driving around and going to your location this weekend, because this weekend is Labor Day. And don't forget, our website has a lot of resources. Our blogs are fantastic. We always have good content there on the blog, so check that out. This show is produced by ePresence, as I mentioned. Our producer, writer, and social media manager, and actually we just gave her a big promotion. She's actually the senior e-publicist. And our VP of sales is Morgan Wood. Until next time, for my guest, Alon Manstur, I am Mark Galvin, and this has been How's Your ePresence?